Hello learners, I welcome you all once again to a political science e-learning portal, and today in this video we are going to continue with the political philosophy of our Indian Constitution. But before starting with this third part of our video, let's have a quick recap of what we had done in our previous two videos. In the very first part we discussed about what do we mean by the term philosophy and what is actually the philosophy of our Indian Constitution. We also dealt with the political approach towards the philosophy of our Constitution in the same video. Then in the next one, we basically touch upon some of the core provisions of our Indian Constitution, which are individual freedom, social justice, respect for diversity and minority rights, and secularism. Today, in this third part, we are going to deal with the other three core provisions, which are universal franchise, federalism, and national identity. Not only this, we will also discuss about the criticism as well as the limitations of our country's constitution. So, without much ado, let us continue with our today's video. Now, let's begin with one of the most important core value of our constitution, that is the universal franchise, which actually means the right to vote. Now, in our country, India, this universal franchise has been adopted since the various onset. But when we compare this and look into the Western democracies, there we find that the right to vote was not given to each and every member of the society. Initially, it was given only to few educated men or maybe to the rich men of the society. The working class as well as the women were not given this right to vote. It was after a lot of struggle that both the women and working classes started getting this right to vote and choose their own representative. But on contrary to that, if we look into the Indian Constitution, we basically find that universal franchise was adopted from the very onset, that is from the very beginning, without any kind of discrimination. If we look at the earliest Constitution of India bill that was passed in 1895, in that bill also we find that it has been stated that any person who is born in India, that means who is the born citizen of India, will have the right to take part in the affairs of the country and be admitted to the public office. What does it mean? That they will be able to have the right to choose their own representative who are going to rule the country on behalf of them. Later on in 1928, Motilal Nehru report also was presented, which reaffirmed the conception of citizenship, according to which every person who is a born citizen of the country and is of minimum 21 years of age will get this right to vote without any kind of discrimination, even maybe on the basis of sex, that is whether it's a male or a female. Both will be getting this right to vote and choose their own representative, which was actually not given to the females of the Western democracies. Later on, this age was reduced to that of 18 years. So in this way, we can say that universal franchise has been adopted in India in its purest form, and India has set up an example for the entire world, where we can say and we can even feel privileged that our country has given this right to everyone at its onset without any kind of discrimination. So this is what we mean by the term universal franchise. Our next core value is federalism. By the term federalism, we actually means the decentralization, or what you even call the division of powers, and we basically know that in India, the division of power is between the central government, state government, as well as a local government, or what you even call the regional government. And all this division of power actually facilitates in the smooth functioning of the government. So it is very essential that the division of power, or what you call as a decentralization of power, should be a must. And that is why our constitution makers adopted federalism as one of the core provisions of the Indian constitution. Now here they have kept three core features of federalism. The first core feature states that our constitution reinforces and reinverts the forms of liberal individualism. There are important constitutionally embedded differences between the legal status and the prerogatives of different subunits within the same federation. Now, what do we mean by this particular first core is that our constitution basically, you can say, promote liberal individualism. That means it promotes freedom to each and every individual. And because of this freedom that has been given to every citizen of a country, the duty of the citizen also increases for helping the government in the smooth functioning of the law and order of the country. The second states our constitution upholds the principle of social justice without compromising on the individual liberties. Now, here the term social justice basically refers to any kind of, you can say, justice that is given to every citizen of the country without any discrimination. So here basically we are talking about two things. Number one is the justice, and number two is equality. So here we provide both equality as well as justice to each and every citizen when we are basically introducing federalism as one of the core provisions of the constitution. And thirdly, it states that against the background of intercommunal strife, the constitution upholds its commitment to group rights. So what does it mean? That no matter there might be any intercommunal strife. Now, while doing the previous one, that is secularism, I had already told you that our country is a multi religious as well as multi community country, where there is not one community or the another, or where there is not one or two religion, but there are multiples of religions, there are multiples of communities. And that is why it is very essential that some kind of, you can say, the balance or decorum should be maintained among all these communities. Otherwise, we cannot expect the 100% freedom and equality given to each and every citizen of the country. And because of that, federalism plays a vital role in order to provide the, you can say, the personal dignity as well as the dignity to the entire group of the society. When nobody is, you can say, discriminated on the basis of multi-communism or on the basis of multi-religion. And that is why the third core value, or what you call as core feature of federalism, is to provide equality to each and every group of the society, irrespective of it being a multi-community or a multi-religious group of the country. Then here we can also basically understand that there are certain rules and regulations that have been adopted by a constitution makers. And here in this particular, you can say, federalism, we can say that no matter the American federalism is a kind of a symmetrical federalism. And compared to it, our Indian constitution is asymmetric federalism. Now, you must be thinking that why do we have asymmetric and not the symmetric type of federalism? It is because there are certain articles, there are certain rights that have been adopted and have been given to the citizens of our country. And two of them are Article 370 and Article 371. Now, this Article 370 is applicable in Jammu and Kashmir, according to which Jammu and Kashmir would have its own constitution. It will not abide by the Constitution of India. The reason behind this is that during the time of India's freedom, India was divided into multiple parts, and one of the part was Jammu and Kashmir, which later on adopted the suzerainty of India in order to get shelter from Pakistani attacks. At that time, the leader of Jammu Kashmir signed a particular petition with this Jawaharlal Nehru and signed Article 370, according to which Jammu Kashmir would have its own constitution and the constitution of India will not be applicable over there. Later on, recently in August 2019, this Article 370 has been abolished by the, you can say, efforts of our Prime Minister, Honorable Narendra Modi. And after that, now Indian Constitution can even be applicable in Jammu and Kashmir. Next is Article 371, which is applicable in the northeastern states of Nagaland. Now here, it not only confers the validity on the pre-existing laws within Nagaland, but also protects the local identity through restrictions on immigration. So here what happens is, this Article 371 gives some special rights to the people of Nagaland. And so here we see that no matter there is a division of power in India, there is decentralization of power in India, there is federalism that is being practiced in India, but still in certain places the modifications have been made. Just as in the case of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir and Article 371 in northeastern parts of Nagaland. So, because of these two and maybe many more, we can say that no matter, the Constitution of American Federalism is totally symmetrical, but the Indian Federalism is basically asymmetric in nature. Now, our last core provision is national identity. Now, by the term national identity, we actually means the personal identity or a sense of belonging to one state or one nation. It is actually a sense of a nation as a cohesive whole, as represented by distinctive traditions, culture, and language. Now, what do we mean actually by this is that national identity is actually the identity of every individual who is living in a particular country. It is his, you can say, a sense of relatedness which he basically feels while staying in a particular nation or country. No matter, in a country like India, there might be lot of traditions, lot of cultures, lot of languages, but still there is a sense of oneness, and that is why our preamble starts with the letter V, the people of India. So here the first beginning lines of the preamble of Indian Constitution itself symbolizes the relevance of national identity, and some of the national identity could be related to the national what you call as the flag, national emblem, okay, then even the national song, etc. So these are some of the identical features of the nation, and that is why whenever we see any flag of a country being hoisted, we have a sense of respect towards it, and that is just because we have the identity that is related to a country. And so that symbolizes our, you can say, the tenet or maybe a real value towards our country. Our constitution constantly reinforce a common national political identity in the form of various, you can say, identical proofs like voter ID, the Aadhaar card, etc. Although India strove to maintain its religious identity along with the national identity, the Indian constitution tried to balance these identities. And for this, the most important work was done by the Iron Man of India, that is Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who not only tried to, you can say, work in order to frame the constitution of the country, but he played a vital role in uniting all the princely states back to our country. And that is why his main objective was to establish one community, and that is the reason why we are able to have one national identity, and that is why we really feel proud to call ourselves as Indians, the natives of India. And this is one of the most core provisions of our Indian constitution, because it gives us our personal identity, it gives the identity to our own country. So, with this, we come to the end of all the core provisions of our constitution. Next, we start with the procedural achievements. And these procedural achievements can mainly be done in two ways. The first is that the Indian constitution reflects a faith in political deliberation. Now, by this we mean that our constitution basically focuses on the politics of a country, that is how a representative needs to rule the country or govern the country, how he needs to serve the country, what should be the rights of the citizens, what should be their duty towards their country as well as towards the nation. Everything has been clearly mentioned in our constitution. That is why our political leaders have blind faith in it and they deliberately follow it as it is. The second one, it reflects the spirit of compromise and accommodation. And this is very true. When we go by all the seven core provisions of our constitution, we can clearly say that it has a spirit of compromise as well as accommodation. And that is why we find not only one or two culture in India, we do not find one or two religions in India, but we find India to be a multicultural, multi-religious and multi-dialected country in the entire world. It is only India where we find maximum of religions, maximum of culture and maximum of linguists living together and prevailing together. Now, we have done the constitutional study in the political philosophical aspect, or what you call as in the political philosophical approach, in a detailed manner. The time now is to understand what are the certain criticisms which have been levied behind our constitution. And basically, we can divide these criticisms into three broad categories. The first category is that it is unwieldy. Now, by the term unwieldy, we basically mean the large and detailed. We basically know that our country's constitution is voluminous. Now, why it is voluminous, why it's bulky, why it is too large, why it is too detailed? Because there are lot many clauses, there are lot many articles, there are lot many provisions that have been mentioned in our constitution. And not only these clauses, articles, provisions, but there are lot many procedures that have been explained in detail in our country's constitution, which actually adds to the bulkiness of our constitution, or what you call as of a document which is absolutely legal. Like, for example, there is a detailed procedure that has been explained for the appointment of a prime minister or the president of the country. And not only this, there are lot many provisions, lot many procedures that have been discussed in detail. And because of this discussion in detail, though on one hand it makes the working of the government very, very systematic, but at the same time it makes the document very large, very bulky, which really takes a lot of patience, lot of time to understand and read. And that is why this is one of the drawback of a constitution, that it is unwieldy, it's too bulky, it's too voluminous, it's too detailed. The next is unrepresentative. Though we basically say that our country is a representative country where each and every citizen has the right to choose his or her own representative. But here, the fact was that the Constituent Assembly that was initially appointed before the, you can say, independence of a country, that Constitution Assembly was not elected by universal adult franchise, but actually it was appointed. And as a result, we cannot call it to be a representative of, you can say, form of our country's ruling way. And that is why we call it as an unrepresentative. And basically there are two components of representatives. One is the voice and another is the opinion. Now here the voice is important, as people must be recognized in their own voice and not in language of their masters, which actually was happening during the time of British arena, where they had imposed a vernacular press act. But here, no matter, we are giving a platform where the individuals could voice up, could, you can say, put their clauses before the public, put their clauses before the government. But at the same time, opinion of each and every person individually could not be taken into account, and for that we require some of the representatives. But here the contrary was that the Constituent Assembly that proposed universal franchise actually was not elected by this procedure, but it was appointed. The reason behind this, again I am telling you, is that the time when the Constituent Assembly was formed, it was before the independence of our country, and that time this representativeness was not given in a very proper manner, in a very free manner in our country. This is the reason why we call it as unrepresentative. And the last but not the least is that it's an alien document. Now alien over here means foreign, which does not belong to our own country. Now, we have already discussed in chapter number 1 that how the constitution of a country was written. It was not written in its original form, but it has been borrowed from different countries' constitution. Like for example, secularism was borrowed from US. And not only this, but there were many countries whose constitution was first referred to by our Constituent Assembly members. They did a detailed and in-depth study of the constitutions of all these countries, and then whatever they liked the most, they chose it and they implemented it in our country's constitution. Now, it was what you can say a copy and paste work. But here, when we were copying and pasting, our Constituent Assembly members totally kept it in mind, the, you can say, the present conditions of the country that were prevailing during that time, because the conditions that were prevailing in India were totally different from those of the Western countries. And that is why it was very essential for our constitution makers that if they are implementing or they are adopting any kind of, you can say, the law or any kind of the features, in that case they need to keep in mind the conditions that were prevailing in India during that time. But still, there are certain things that do not coincide with our country's conditions, and so we say that it is totally an alien document which has been adopted but has not been curated. So there is a difference between curated as well as adopted, and so we can say our country's constitution is not curated, and that is why we can simply call it as an alien document. So these were certain criticisms of our constitution. Coming to the limitation part of the constitution, that is, what are, you can say, the demerits or limitations of the country's constitution. The first is that the Indian constitution has a centralized idea of national unity. And in a country which is totally full of diversities, it is not possible to attain national unity in 100% manner. And that is one of the biggest limitation of our country's constitution, that it cannot establish national unity in its pure form. Secondly, it appears to have glossed over some important issues of gender justice, particularly within the family. And here we have, since ages, seen that our country is patriarchal society. That is, the society which is being governed and ruled by the masculine power. We do not have what you call as a feminism that is being growing up in a larger bulk, though later on feminism cropped up in our country, but still our country is, though on paper, stating that equal justice and equality has been provided to all the genders, irrespective of any gender, irrespective of any discrimination. But yet we find in one way or the other, even in our personal lives, that gender discrimination is practiced, if not at the peak, but at least at the foundation level. And that is another drawback of our country's constitution, that there are lot many issues that are related to gender justice in our country. No matter the things like domestic violence act as well as Hindu succession amendment act have been introduced in our country, but still we cannot say that it is totally a kind of a society where all the genders are treated equally. It's still a patriarchal society, or what you call as the male dominating society. Thirdly, it is not clear why, in a poor developing country, certain basic socio-economic rights were relegated to the section on directive principles rather than made on the integral features of our fundamental rights. Now, here we basically know that the socio-economic right is not, you can say, has not been implemented or made a part of a fundamental right, and that is why we are still finding people being discriminated on the basis of the social economic conditions. We still find the differences between the higher caste and the low caste. We still find the differences between the rich and the poor, and that is why we can say that this constitution failed to, you can say, establish a unity in a country where there can't be any discrimination on the basis of social economic factors, though it is on papers, but it has not been practiced in the practical sense in our country. So besides this, we can say that Sedition Act is still relevant and it's still being practiced in our country, where people are raising the public opinions, and these opinions can even turn up into civil, you can say, wars or civil discontinuations. And as a result, we still find that Sedition Act, though it has been banned, but still it is being practiced in our country. Next is the criminalization of politics. Everywhere we find that, though it is mentioned in the, you can say, the parameters for a candidate to be elected as the political leader, that he or she should not have any criminal background, but still there are many political leaders in our country who do sustain, or who are still sustaining as the political representatives as the representatives of the public having their own criminal background. And so, if the leader is corrupt, if the leader himself has some criminal background, we cannot expect the country to be in a safer hand. Next is the Panchayati Raj having less powers, though we say that there has been a division of power, and all the, you can say, the central government, state government, as well as the local government work hand in hand. But still we find that Panchayati Raj works at a grassroots level, where it has to totally depend upon the central government as well as the state government for funds and for many other, you can say, help, which at times it does not get at the very earliest moment. As a result, Panchayati Raj system is prevailing, but it does not have as much powers as the central government or the state government actually is. And that is why the condition of Panchayati Raj is not so good in maximum parts of our country. And last but not the least is the less deterrence of rule of law. That is, while a lot of rape cases, even after the stringent provisions in POSCO Act have taken place, we know that laws are made in our country, but maximum of those laws are just the ones that are documented and not being practiced in the practical sense. As a result, no matter POSCO Act has been, you can say, put into papers, no matter it has been, you can say, put into practice recently, but still this act which was there in our country not from a few years but from decades, still we have been witnessing the conditions like or the cases like eve teasing, rape cases, female molestation taking place every now and then. If POSCO Act had really been active in that condition, these cases would have been very, very less. Since 2009 to 2019, we have seen multiple, you can say, increase in the rape cases in our country. We have seen multiple increase in the female molestation cases in our country. No matter POSCO Act has now been put into practice, but still it does not give the capital punishment to the accused. Still, accused is someone who is set free at times, and the victim fails to get the justice. Here, the condition of justice delayed is justice denied really comes to be, you can say, proving absolutely right. And that is why this is one of the biggest limitations of our country's constitution, that acts are there, laws are there, provisions and clauses are there, but they are there only on papers. Maximum of them have still been untouched and they have not been put into practice. And that really makes sometimes our constitution an impractical constitution which cannot be really put into practice. So, with this we come to the end of our chapter. But before ending, let's have a quick recap of what we have covered in this video and our previous two videos. Basically, here we can say that we have covered that as a country, we are diverse, so respect for diversity hence safeguards the interests of minority and make everyone equal. That is, we had touched upon respect for diversity and minority rights. We even touched upon secularism, federalism, national identity, universal franchise, individual freedom, and justice. That is social justice. We even discussed and had debates upon the, you can say, the constitution and how to accommodate these views. There are also some needs or some sort of compromises that needed to be made in our constitution. So we have touched upon all these points in our 3 videos of the philosophy of the constitution. I hope you must have been able to watch my previous 2 videos, and if you have not watched them, please do watch them to have a chronological understanding of this particular concept of philosophy of the constitution in terms of political approach. So with this we come to the end of our today's video. Hoping to see you soon with the another video where we are going to touch upon the constitution being the living constitution in the entire world. Till then, please take care of yourself and keep watching my videos. Do like, subscribe and share them. Take care. Bye bye.